Hi, I am Tana Russell. I am Deputy Director of the Evergreen Council on Problem Gambling here in Olympia, Washington.
And I'm Katie Martz, and I'm the Executive Director of Voices of Problem Gambling Recovery. We're in Portland, Oregon, and I'm someone with lived experience from gambling harm. Our mission at VPGR is to educate, advocate, and promote recovery. And I am involved in creating peer trainings for folks that want to work directly with other individuals that are suffering from gambling harm.
And I have a background as a counselor, and I've had the pleasure of working alongside peers in various roles and also working alongside individuals such as Kitty to help develop specialized peer training. And we will be presenting a session on a SWOT analysis of integrating problem gambling and gaming into treatment and peer work.
So SWOT analysis is an acronym that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And what we wanted to do was not just look at trying to sell people in on partnering peers with counselors, but talk about all of the unique things that we can do to mitigate any of the concerns you might have. For example, working with peers can be kind of tricky because peers work one-on-one with folks, often out in their communities. And so we're in a position to really be put in some precarious kind of ethical decision-making instances. And we want to talk about truth cannon type topics of what do you do in a situation like that? We also like to talk a lot about collaborating with therapists to work as a team with the client and open it up for folks to express their concerns around these sort of partnerships, while at the same time really being strengths-based. You know, when I think of strengths-based, it's like folks with lived experience are able to say, ooh, it was like this for me. What if we, when we work with folks, treat it more like this? Have you found that useful, Tana?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think the peer and therapist-counselor relationship within a program is so incredibly symbiotic. And unfortunately, that partnership doesn't happen maybe as much as would be nice and beneficial for the clients to be able to have this well-rounded team putting their heads together on their behalf and bringing their different backgrounds, training, and experience together for them.
And we want to fix that. We want to make it and so that there's more utilization of peer services, that there's more people trained, that there's more clinicians that think I'd like to add gambling skills to my repertoire that I can offer as a therapist in the Pacific Northwest. We really want to get away from the siloed kind of services where individuals that want to get some services have to go to a counselor here and maybe a peer here and maybe a community support group here. We want to see them integrated.
And there's a lot that people can do without being a certified gambling counselor. You do have to have special training to be and background and licenses to be able to diagnose and treat these disorders. But there's a lot in terms of screening, referral, education, case management, outreach, prevention, and the list goes on that individuals can do in whatever that their setting is, whether they're a peer, a provider, a prevention specialist, or some other support and behavioral health program. So we really hope that this particular session lays a great foundation for individuals to know what those windows are to start integrating this work and then where to go to get further training. And we try to focus on, what is it, maybe like 60% information, 40% application, so that you actually will leave with things that you can do, such as screening and referral, as well as some information that hopefully can be integrated right away.
The world's really become a smaller place by being able to offer services virtually. And so people are able to have that check-in between therapeutic sessions with their counselor, with a peer, or in real time that they can just call us up and say, hey, I'm driving by a venue that's triggering to me. Can we talk through it while I'm driving? or I'm wondering where a meeting is tonight, and I saw there was this one. Do you have lived experience in going to this one? And so we find other ways to be available to people than just the office setting, which is also really, really useful and important. That's one of the takeaways we found from giving this talk, are just applicable, proven methods to help people quit gambling, like financial barriers. We cover that pretty in depth.
Yeah, I really enjoy the activity where the attendees of this session get to explore their own unconscious biases about finances and gambling and gaming, and individuals developing disorders from these. There's a lot of challenging common held beliefs and myths and misperceptions, which gets a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. We find that people sometimes say, "Oh, I have a kid at home that's gaming too much. What kind of advice would you have for us?" And that opens it up to talk about what is an actual addiction, or the public health model of, do we want to start addressing some of these things once they get to the severe level, or do we want to get in front of them when they're only like a mild kind of warning issue with gaming and gambling? That's really nice to just empower folks, whether they're going to continue to work in the gambling field or not, to be able to identify that and get in front of it.
And in terms of empowering people, do you want to mention a little bit some of the stigmatizing language and more positive or more strengths-based approach language that we might encourage people to start using if they're going to be entering this field and working with individuals in recovery from these issues?
When I think of all the roles in my life as someone that had disordered gambling, problem gambler really isn't the first one that comes to mind. I try to think of myself as a peer, as an advocate, as an activist, as a friend, as a partner. There's many words I can describe myself other than just gambler. And so I try to use person first language, and I know you all do too. What other kinds of words do you find that come up? Like, do you all use relapse?
So that's one of those that is starting to phase out. I prefer, in terms of referring to an addictive disorder, a recurrence of symptoms. And this is one thing that is a little bit unique in the world of gambling and gaming recovery. In substances, generally it's broadly accepted a total abstinence model, with the exception of often tobacco. But with gambling and gaming, it's more harm reduction. And what we're looking for is there a recurrence of symptoms?
If we're there creating a relationship and building engagement that's going to help people stay in services longer, have less severe gambling if and when it does come back, have less recurrences less frequently, because there's a relationship with a team and people that are just available to the individual, then that's one of the pure competencies, is relational, not just doing the paperwork part. And so it's a different way to look at things.
And I think at the heart of it is that this is a means to help improve individuals' overall quality of life, measured beyond just attendance of sessions or meetings, which really don't indicate them achieving the life that they really want to have, a full and rich and meaningful life full of quality relationships, and sleeping with peace at night. So I appreciate that these core competencies kind of get more at the root of what really helps a person to be successful with their own goals, not just program goals.
Yeah. And I think it's also important that we look towards what's next, of where do people want to go. The competencies help peers with career development, that they know what skills they can be working on. And ideally, by really mastering those, they can become peer supervisors, peer trainers. We don't necessarily have folks with lived experience going straight to a counselor path. We also want to encourage folks to look at what's meaningful and fun and part of their values in life, and focus more on that than what not to do. We can't just say, don't gamble. Do you know Robert Downey Jr. is a celebrity that has a lot of addiction in his past? Are you familiar with him? There's a neat quote. He says, "People never change because they're under threat or under duress. Never. They change because they see something that makes their life seem valuable enough to start moving toward a life worth living." And I like that because, I mean, isn't the name of the conference where we're presenting Focus on the Future? Like, let's look to where we're going for peers, where we're going and getting gaming integrated. Do you want to talk more about what we're doing with gaming?
Sure. We are going to be talking a little bit about integrating gaming work into whether you're a peer provider or some other role in a behavioral health program. And of course, there is a plethora of research and evidence-based practices in terms of addressing substance use disorders and even mental health disorders. There's a less so for gambling disorder and even much, much less for gaming disorder.
One thing we've noticed about gaming is the impact on families, and that's a topic we'll touch on with both gambling and gaming, is the just unique role family members or affected others might experience in wearing lots of hats. Like, it may be that with gambling, you're put in a position to both be experiencing some insecurity financially, some mistrust, but also wanting to cheer wildly for your person that's experiencing the gambling to be able to get some relief from it. And those are really mixed roles. Families of folks that have a gaming disorder are really struggling with how to set limits and what to do to help their child sometimes find other things to do or make friends in the community, and how to substitute that kind of rapid fire dopamine that folks get used to when they get involved. It's a very much chemical and electrical activity thing that happens in the brain with both the gambling and gaming.
Yeah. And it's really important that whether it's in the life of the person who has found gambling or gaming to be unmanageable and start causing problems for them, or the family member that is just feeling lost and thrown under the bus and does not know what to do about it, to find someone, a trusted person, whether could be a therapist or it could be a stranger, but be it a therapist, counselor, doctor, peer, or it could be someone a pastor, preacher, a family friend you trust, to help you figure out what are your next steps. You don't have to have the answers. They don't have to have the answers, but it can really, really help to have at least one person who will stand by you as you figure out what is the next step toward that help and healing.
Oh, right. I learned a word that's in a different context than I'm used to. The word is contingency, and it means just to be there. And I find that if there was one word that I could express what it seems like peers do, is that we're there. We're one person in someone's life that can say, gambling could happen again. You could have some behaviors that feel uncomfortable to you. We're not going to shame you. We're going to back you up. We're going to help you figure it out. We're going to listen to you. We're going to avail ourselves to you with boundaries. And let's really work on setting those and helping people feel safe, understanding what they are. But let's offer that contingency of being there with the person. And therapists do the same thing. And when there's a team, and that also includes some community resources, that's really powerful to just be available to people. I am delighted to get to talk about partnering with therapists and how useful it can be in folks being able to stay in services longer, having less severity of gambling when and if it does occur, and having less frequent occurrences of the gambling, talking about harm reduction, talking about looking towards the future, which is the name of the conference, and really focusing on how to get back to our values and make life feel good in the long run.